Okay, once again, for those who are just coming in, my name is Michael Spurgeon, and I serve as the Broken Arrow City Manager. And I want to thank our Broken Arrow School District for allowing us to use this amazing facility. We couldn't be happier to be here to show off this brand new facility that they're using. And so I just want to say thank you. I see Roslyn here from the school district. So when you see Superintendent Perry, please tell him we say thank you for being able to use the facility. So just real quick, this is the second meeting we had. We had a meeting about 18 months ago at the high school library to talk about the road projects that are happening in the north part of our city. And we had the county commissioners because they have a couple of projects here as well. Tonight's format really is going to be an open house. We are going to have some comments from both of the county and city engineers respectively. And I was going to offer the county commissioners the chance to say a few words if they'd like to. But really this is more about you having the opportunity to engage with the engineering construction team and the city officials, county officials, about the projects that are currently either under construction or will be under construction. Because as we said 18 months ago, the city, for example, has 10 projects in this particular area, and we've completed several of them. One of those projects we talked about 18 months ago was East Albany. And as you can see, we've completed this road, and we've got a number more that are getting ready to start. But this really was an opportunity for you, and we're going to continue to have these meetings periodically because as construction starts, we want to make sure you have a chance to come and talk about what's happening with the projects. So if you have questions about a road widening that's going to be coming and your subdivision may be affected, we're going to be able to answer those questions. If you have questions about the status of a project, we'll be able to answer those questions. And if we don't have an answer to your question, my folks, and I'm sure Alex Mills will as well, we'll get your name and your contact information, and we will get back to you to answer your questions about particular question you may have about a project. So at this time, I'd like to offer the county commissioners if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, Michael. I'll keep mine very brief. Roads are very important to us. I know they're very important to everybody. I went through a campaign this past 6 months ago that was a top priority of everybody in my district, which is further to south, but also includes south part of Broken Arrow. Public safety is number one on our list. That's for law enforcement and roads. So I want to make sure we get plenty of time to hear from the experts, a lot of details about roads, a lot of projects happening in Broken Arrow, but across the county. And one of the bigger ones on my watch is Garnett and 101st, and probably some of y'all know about that. And but I'm going to defer to Commissioner Salee. He's been on the commission for a full term and re-elected, and we're glad to have him there. And he's been involved in some of these roads more than I have that have been on the north side of Broken Arrow. So I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Salee.
Thank you very much, and my pleasure to be here tonight. And Tulsa County thanks you for your patience, and as we go through these projects, trying to get them completed. I really hoped, the projects we have is Garnett and then the 51st Street project. And we really had expected to start construction at least on the 51st project. Alex will get into that, but we have had issues. COVID caused a lot of problems. We've had utility relocation issues, right-of-way issues, and no excuses. And funding issues as well, as property values increase and right-of-way needs to be purchased. But we're making progress, as Alex will share with you, and it's been my pleasure to serve you. And if there's any issues, problems that arise, don't hesitate to contact the county offices. If it's not ours, we'll certainly direct them to Broken Arrow. But those two projects, we're responsible for them, and whether it's potholes or any safety issues, grass need to be cut, whatever, feel free to contact the county. We're there for you, and we serve you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, County Commissioners. Before I turn it over, I wanted just to take a minute because I see we have a lot of folks here today. There is so much that goes into the actual construction of a road. In this case, many of these roads are being widened. And it does take multiple years in order to complete a road widening. And I want to go through those steps. The first step is that you have to have the funding for the project. And all of the city's projects that you're going to be hearing about tonight, asking questions about, we are basically have been funded through the Broken Arrow voters in the passage of a general bond obligation. And so we have put these projects before the voters, and the voters have approved those projects. And then we have to acquire the funds in order to do so. And while we're going through that process, the next step is we have to design the road, and that normally takes about a year. It takes about a year to design a road, especially if you've got a bridge to repair or upgrade in there. And then the second thing that has to happen is we have to acquire the right-of-way in order to accommodate the road widening. And that sometimes we have folks that will donate the right-of-way to us. Sometimes folks want to get compensated for the right-of-way. So that process, we normally program a year in for the right-of-way acquisition. What we could do in many cases concurrently is we can try to work with the utility departments such as PSO, ONG, it could be Windstream, or it could be Cox, because they're going to have to relocate their assets out of the right-of-way, especially if we're going to be relocating the road to basically from 3 to 5 lanes. That process really depends on the schedule of the utility company. The city has no real control over how long it will take for the utility company to relocate them. We do have periodical utility relocation meetings, so they are aware of these projects, and they do try to get them on their schedule as soon as possible. Once we've actually designed the plans, acquired the right-of-way, had the utilities relocated, then we go out to bid for the project. The council awards that. It usually takes about 60 days from the time we award a project for actual construction to start. Then normally you can count on that project taking about a year. So in essence, we program in at probably 3 to 4 years for every mile of road that it takes to widen, because there are so many steps in the process. And sometimes folks go, why is it taking so long in order to complete this road widening? Well, when it comes to city project, you have to have the money, have to design the plans, acquire the right-of-way, get the utilities relocated, then the actual construction. And so literally it can be a 3 to 4 year process. If you throw a bridge in there, you're definitely going to take a little additional time. And so the other thing I want to mention is that when we build bond packages, the council said we're only going to keep the tax rate the same. And so we're basically trying to work within a package that basically the voters have approved based on taxation. And so I wanted to mention that, and we want to hear all of your questions this evening when you have the opportunity to visit with the city officials or some of the staff members. At this time, I'm going to turn it over. Ethan, who's going to go? Did you draw straws?
Travis Small.
Okay. I'm going to introduce Travis Small from the Engineering Construction Department for the City of Broken Arrow.
Thank you, Mr. Spurgeon. As Mr. Spurgeon said, I'm Travis Small with the City of Broken Arrow. I'm the Transportation Division Manager. So most of these roadway projects have run through me, so you can blame me most of the time for the inconveniences that you're going to have. We've got our Construction Division Manager over here, Tim Robbins. Ethan Edwards is the Director of our Engineering and Construction Department. So Tim takes care of the problems once I design them. So he's the one that fixes them when we have problems. So we appreciate all their efforts. So one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is the reason for this meeting. Basically, we're going to talk about the funding mechanisms, and some of this the city manager's already touched on. Typical project timelines, project types and impacts that we're going to be discussing tonight. Also, just to let you know, if you come up here and look at these boards, this far right board over here has a list of all the projects we'll be discussing in depth tonight in our breakout session. So if you have any questions about those, if you have any other questions about some of the other projects across the city, feel free to reach out and discuss it with us. Come up and talk to us about it. But there are 16 projects that are shown on this list over here. The top 2, projects 1 and 2, are complete, and that's this Albany project, as Mr. Spurgeon mentioned. That's complete. We have 3 others which are almost immediately going to construction. So we're really pleased to see those 3 go into construction and the other 2 complete. So we've got 16 plus projects up there. The rest of after we get complete with the project or the presentation tonight, we'll break out into a question and answer session and discuss whatever you would like to ask about. So next slide, please. So again, city manager talked a little bit about funding already. For the most part, most of our projects are GO bond projects. So they're all city funds. However, there are some of the projects that we deal with that are using federal funds called STP funds. Now, when federal funds are tied to a project, that then makes it exponentially more difficult. We love ODOT, they're a great partner, but they have a lot more rules and regulations that we have to follow, so that extends the timeline of a project once STP funds are tied to it. And actually, 2 of the projects I mentioned that are going to construction are STP funded. So they've taken some time to get to the point they are now because of that STP funding. But it really does help the city to apply for that STP federal funding for us to extend our dollars so we can get more done. Tulsa County has a few other funding sources that aren't necessarily available to the city. BR funds, CIRB funds, that's county improvements to roads and bridges. I used to have a lot to do with that in my previous life. I did a lot of county bridge and roadway work, but those funds are not available to the cities. They also have some taxes that are available. Let's see, Muskogee Creek Nation is funding some of the projects. To fix the county. So Tulsa County has a lot of funding available that maybe the city doesn't, but it can take a little bit more time than our GEO bond funding. So I know that it becomes a challenge for the county at times with that. Next slide, please. So, like the city manager mentioned, typical project, a roadway project timeline. Now this is typical. It's not to say that you're going to hit that timeline all the time. Design does generally take about 12 months. Right away, we like to say it's going to take 12 months. Depending on the landowners you're dealing with, that can take a much longer time period. When you find landowners that aren't willing to work with you, and obviously it's a delicate situation when you're dealing with that, because when a city's trying to take some land from a landowner, we want to be really conscious of how we're affecting them. So we really try to take care when we do that. But sometimes you just can't come to an agreement, and it becomes challenging at that time and can delay the project a little bit. Utilities, what we've been finding, typically we like to say it's going to take 12 months, but inevitably what we've run into, depending on the utility you're working with, it can take anywhere to 12 to 18 months to 24 months. We try to streamline that as much as possible, as the city manager said. We have regular meetings with our utility companies to go over our projects and our fund, what we expect as far as our timelines. But we don't have a lot of control with respect to that. So we try to mitigate that as much as possible and streamline that as much as we can. And then construction. Once we get to construction, your typical roadway project will take approximately 12 months. When you introduce the bridges, as the city manager mentioned, that increases your timeline. And remember, as I stated before, when you have federal funds tied to it, that also extends that timeline. So a typical roadway project that doesn't have a bridge tied to it typically will get done in 12 months. And that's a mile worth of roadway, okay? Next slide, please. All right, so we've got several different types of projects, mostly roadway improvements, mostly roadway widenings that we'll be talking about tonight across the city. But we also have some bridges included in those projects. And then we've got some intersections. And of course, Alex will touch on a little bit on the roundabouts that he's or the county's looking at installing in several locations across the city or in the vicinity. So he'll touch on those. We have some signalized intersections that are included in our projects. One that I'll touch on here in a little bit that is going to impact the area very quickly. And so we'll talk about that here in a minute. So we'll be impacting businesses along the corridors that while these construction projects are underway. Obviously, we try to mitigate that as much as we can, minimize the impacts to those people as much as possible. We'll be impacting the schools, traffic patterns. Obviously, when you have to put traffic control out, you might be minimizing the number of lanes that you have. And again, we try to look out for that as much as we can, but there's not a lot you can do when you have a two-lane roadway when you're doing construction. It becomes a little more challenging to navigate, but we will, all of our projects we strive to keep open during construction, and as Tim might mention to you, that can be extremely challenging at times. So we work very hard to keep it open to traffic, but there are going to be times when you're going to be inconvenienced, and we, again, try to minimize that as much as possible. All right, next slide, please. Well, this is an example of the project that's going to be under construction in front of the high school. This is the traffic control plan that's shown. We're going to be impacting school children at this location. This is right out in front of the Early Childhood Development Center, and that's where the school kids cross. So we've got to really look out for those kids as we're doing that construction. So next slide, please. Okay. This is a map that shows the overall area that shows all of those 16 projects that I mentioned previously, the county projects as well as the city projects. And to the right is a listing of all those projects, so you can kind of correspond those on the maps. Next slide, please. And I'll turn this over to Alex Mills at this point.
My name is Alex Mills. I'm the Tulsa County Engineer. Thank you for being here tonight. You can go to the next slide. So I'm going to break the presentation down into a couple general areas. The first is Northeast Broken Arrow, which most of the people here are probably the most interested in. We have the two green roundabouts at 31st and 41st and County Line. Those have been designed. We're pending right-of-way and construction. We do not have the money for the right-of-way acquisition yet. We're pending some bond sales in our vision program, but as soon as we get that, we'll start acquiring right-of-way. The other project I'd like to talk about, so this is the 31st and 41st roundabouts. Again, we're all the way through design, and then we'll move into right-of-way, utility, and then construction. Next slide, please. Okay, the next project is at 51st. It's from 177th to 193rd. This is a widening to 5 lanes, someone asked, as well as a 2-lane roundabout. So this will be all bid as one package. We are in the middle of utility relocations. Unfortunately, O&G, PSO are a little over encumbered right now in this area. They're dealing with the relocations for the Broken Arrow project just south of here. So we're not anticipating being under construction until about December of this year. But we're confident that it'll be either the end of this year or the first of next year. Next slide. The next project is 51st Street, and I know it's hard to read from this angle. That's from Elm to 177th, or 161st to 177th. That is a widening to 5 lanes as well. That one has some federal funds involved in it, and as Travis mentioned, that slows us down a bit. So we're probably 2 years out from construction on this project. We're in utility relocation right now, right-of-way acquisition, excuse me, and we should be moving into utility relocation next year. Next slide. So our south Broken Arrow projects, and this trolls into Tulsa a little bit, so forgive me, is Garnett from 91st to 101st, including the intersection. And then we have 2 miles of 101st Street from Memorial over to Garnett that we're widening. Next slide. The first project is Garnett. We're widening to 5 lanes, and it's actually 4 lanes once you get south of the turnpike. And then expanding the intersection and actually raising the intersection almost 6 feet. Part of the delay of this project was it was important to us to make sure that this road was elevated out of the floodplain. As anyone who lives in Broken Arrow knows, when it floods, this intersection gets shut down a lot. And so part of the delay was when the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority built the overpass, they did not correct the floodplains. And so we had to correct their correction before we could actually get our floodplain maps approved. So that's what's taken a little bit of time. We've moved all the utilities with the exception of 2. ONG's in process. If you've been out there, you've seen them working. And then we still have Windstream hanging on the old PSO poles. So as soon as we get those moved, we're going to be in good shape. We're anticipating starting construction late summer, early fall on this project. Okay, 101st Street. We are in right-of-way acquisition. We're making some progress. It is widening from 5 lanes from Memorial through Mingo with some limited improvements at the Mingo intersection and all the way over to Garnett. This also includes replacement of a large bridge structure just north of Cedar Ridge Country Club. And so this has federal funds involved. So we're probably looking probably a year out before we would start construction on the first mile, but we would not start until Garnett's finished. So I would anticipate once Garnett's finished, we'll be moving into construction on the east mile from Mingo to Garnett, and then we'll follow that up with the west mile from Memorial to Mingo.
This is the same list that you see in this far right, table over here on the, I guess it'd be your left, my far right. This is the same table showing those 16 projects. And basically the schedules for the design, right-of-way, utilities, and construction. Now, these are our best estimates. As much as we can, we try to keep these on schedule, but from time to time, those things do slide a little bit. We don't have control of the utilities all the time like we would like, and again, the right-of-way can be an issue at times. Designs usually go along fairly smoothly. It's when you run into dealing with various landowners and various utility companies that you start running into some issues when projects schedules get to be an issue. Next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier there were 3 projects that are imminent, that are getting ready to go to construction for us. And these are the 3 projects. 2 of these 3 have federal funds tied to it. So what federal funds mean is we're not in 100% control of that project. Typically, a project that we use GO bond money for, that will be completely in our control. Our construction division will oversee it, and we will manage the project all the way through construction. When federal funds are tied to it, ODOT takes over, okay? And as I said, ODOT's a great partner. They're a wonderful partner, but we don't have full control. So with that in mind, 2 projects that you're seeing up here that are under ODOT's control are Albany Street and 23rd Street. Albany Street will start April 10th. April 10th, the contractor plans to shut the intersection down for left-hand turns at 23rd Street. So there will be no left-hand turns at 23rd and Albany. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's going to be a challenge. We're right next to the biggest high school in the state of Oklahoma. So that's going to be challenging. We've already been working with the school system about this, trying to figure out alternatives that will mitigate that issue, but that's going to be a big challenge. And as I said, ODOT's in control of this. We are not 100% in control. We're working with them, and we're trying to find different ways that we can approach this to make sure that that does not cause major issues for our traveling public. But it is going to be challenging. So the duration of that project is 12 months based upon ODOT's bidding. So if we start in April, we'll be finishing in March next year. Again, but we've been coordinating with the school system to try to figure out ways we can approach this to make it as easy on everybody as possible. So 23rd Street, that project advertised, and we found out as of today that it will start in May. We were anticipating it was going to start in July, so it's moved up a little bit. Now, that project will also impact the school system because College is part of this 23rd Street project. The 23rd Street project goes from Houston to Kenosha, includes the bridge over the Broken Arrow Expressway and the intersection at College. Well, the intersection at College is the main route for buses for the school system. So we're raising that intersection 7+ feet. That's going to be a challenge. So we've been, again, coordinating with the school on that. But it will start in May. The contractor has sworn to us that they will not start on College until after the end of school. So we know that for sure. They're going to start on some water line work, some sanitary sewer, a retaining wall that they're going to build. That project, we will maintain traffic 1 lane each direction, which currently it's just a 2-lane road anyway, so it won't be any different than normal. It will be narrowed down a little bit, obviously, because of construction that's going on, and you need to definitely take care when you're driving through there. But they're going to build the new bridge immediately adjacent to the existing bridge, keep the existing bridge open during construction. So there will be some times during that construction we're going to go back and forth, and there could be some minor inconveniences. We will get all the information out to the public as quickly as we can to make sure you're aware of what's going on construction-wise. So that project, because there's the bridge over the Broken Arrow Expressway, we anticipate that's going to take more like 24 months. So it's not your typical roadway project. Now, somebody asked earlier, what are we doing to these projects as far as widening? Both the Albany project and the 23rd Street project are going to be 5 lanes. They're going to be widened 5 lanes. They're going to have enclosed storm sewer systems. The 23rd Street project will have a 10-foot trail and a 5-foot sidewalk. The Albany project will have 5-foot sidewalks, enclosed storm sewers. So that's what we're doing on those. The last project up there is one that is bond money, city bond money, and that one will be kicking off in April. Anyway, 37th Street will be widened from a 2-lane roadway, and if any of y'all have driven that from Houston to Kenosha, you know there's some major vertical curves there that you can't really see very well. That project will actually cut some of those hills down and make that much more visible so you can see better down the roadway. It will be a 3-lane design. It will have a sidewalk on the east side, and it will have curb and gutter with some enclosed storm sewer. So major improvement to what's there now. We do have plans to go to the mile north on 37th Street when that project is complete. That is another city bond project as well, but that's the plan. So next slide, please. I do want to reiterate, again, with respect to the 2 ODOT projects where they're in control, we will do everything we can to work with them, but we don't have 100% control. And actually, Mr. Schwab, I believe, might want to add a comment or two here.
My name is Kenny Schwab. I'm the Assistant City Manager over Operations. I did ask to speak right at the end, and then I'll turn it back over to Mr. Spurgeon. We're almost done getting ready to go to the breakout sessions. It is not lost on us that there are 3,800 students at the Broken Arrow High School. It is not lost on us that there's over a couple of hundred teachers, support staff, administrators. It is not lost on us that they have a great football team and they play 5 games at that stadium throughout the course of the year. It is not lost on us that they have the greatest band in all the land. Amen. They have performances at the football stadium, and that they go through the summer. It is not lost on us. We have worked and planned. We have relationships with ODOT. We have relationships with Tulsa County. We have relationships with Broken Arrow Public Schools. Even though we're not in control of the construction, we are taking responsibility all the way through the end, and we will meet with everybody routinely. I have known Mr. Spurgeon. I have known Mr. Spurgeon 25 years, and if I've learned anything from him, we will communicate to the public. It is your tax dollars, it is your streets, and we will be communicating. We will have videos, we will have highlights, we will put out information, much like we did at New Orleans Square. I would like to say at New Orleans Square, I was panicked before we started to do the same thing at the intersection this past year. That's a large school, 1,300 students, all 9th graders. What do 9th graders do? They don't ride the bus, their parents drive them. They drive them. I was greatly concerned about that. We went before the school started to schedule pickup and actually talked to a ton of parents. On the first day of school, the intersection was perfect. They listened. They got our highlights. They got our information. It has actually worked extremely well. We're committed to doing the same thing at this location. And by the way, I live right up here. So I'm committed to my wife. We can make sure she has that information. So one other thing that we will do, we've already started it. Travis did it, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. We will go to as many HOAs as we can, their annual meetings. I think we've already gone to one. My subdivision will have one. We will go and give information, answer questions, and make sure people know. If you know, it's best. Lynn Lane, we didn't talk about it. We can't fix Lynn Lane until we fix County Line. Think about it. If we were working on Lynn Lane, where does the traffic go? Elm, County Line. County Line can't take it. We've got to fix County Line first before we move west. Mr. Spurgeon.
Okay, just real quick, everybody, so everybody can hear. Couple things. I'm the one that picked the format because I believe open houses work best when you're dealing with engineering construction projects. So please don't jump any of the council members out. Okay, if you have a concern about the format, come see me. because I've learned that some people don't like to ask questions in public, but you get them where they can talk to the people that can answer their questions, they feel much more comfortable, okay? Also want to recognize Rocky Hinkle, our street and stormwater director. So if you have a problem with your road and your development, then please see Rocky, because Rocky can tell you where that road in terms of repaving, resurfacing, reconstruction is, and if he can't, he'll get back to you, okay? And we want everybody's questions to get answered this evening. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apologize, because you may have noticed our sirens went off today, and it's not Wednesday. Okay?
But it was a good thing it did, because we had some.
Okay. But what a perfect day to make a mistake. Because Sunday night, that would have been disastrous. Okay, so I apologize. We had the right time, just the wrong day. Okay? And I couldn't think of a better day to make a mistake, and I take responsibility for it. And we have two of our planning commission members here. We have Bob Gordson and J. Lee Klimpa, and I want to recognize them because they come out and they do a lot for the planning commission and development of our community. Thank you very much. And then finally, I want to thank our county commissioners. I mean, obviously, they've got a lot of responsibility. Tulsa County is growing, and they're trying to maintain a lot of road projects and try to make sure that we work together. We have a great relationship with the county commissioners in terms of working together. We're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to serve the same citizens, and a big part of that is transportation. So come out and ask all your questions. We'll be here till 8 o'clock, folks. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for watching. This is a production of the City of Broken Arrow, the city where opportunity lives.